Time is everything. Surely, what time is it is the most frequently asked question of all, right? If you were to ask this question of a cryptocurrency blockchain, however, you would be hard-pressed to get an answer. That's because almost every cryptocurrency blockchain out there today actually records transactions without reference to time. Doesn't sound very efficient, does it? It took a few years, but someone eventually noticed that nobody was effectively keeping time in crypto and decided to do something about it. My name is Guy, and today I will be exposing you to the sunny rays of Solana. Solana is a cryptocurrency which has solved the clock problem by building a decentralized clock into its own native blockchain. Why is this important? Well, Solana proves that it's possible to be decentralized, secure, and scalable, and shows that this can be done without the use of any Layer 2 solutions like Ethereum 2.0 sharding or Bitcoin's Lightning Network. I know that fall has already begun, but it's time to dig through the skeletons in your closet and break out the sunscreen, because Solana is hot. Now, before I get into the good stuff, I need to come clean on something, folks. It is with some great sadness that I have to say that I am not a financial advisor. So, unfortunately, the one thing that you will not be getting here is financial advice. You should always do your own research, and we hope that this video will help with that research. And if this is your first time touching base with the Bureau, welcome. In case you missed it, my name is Guy, and my mission is to show you the latest and greatest cryptocurrencies, crypto projects, DeFi protocols, and exchange platforms. If this is the sort of stuff that tickles your fancy, then I suggest you give that subscribe button a gentle push. Turning on notifications will help you stay up to date and also increase your chances of typing first in the comment section. In the spirit of keeping time, I've added timestamps to this video, which you can find in the video timeline right here. So go take a peek and see if there's a topic there which you just can't wait to hear about. All right, I've got my sunscreen. Let's bask in Solana. If you live in California, the name Solana might sound familiar. This is because Solana is named after a beach slightly north of San Diego, where Solana cryptocurrency founder Anatoly Yakovenko worked for nearly 13 years as a software engineer at Qualcomm. Qualcomm is a Fortune 500 company which specializes in software, hardware, and wireless technologies for mobile phones. If you're currently listening to this on an Android phone, which has been released in the last 2 to 3 years, there is a high likelihood it has some sort of Qualcomm tech under the hood. Stuff which Anatoly was instrumental in developing. Solana's crafty creator was initially not a very big fan of cryptocurrency. He was not all that impressed by Bitcoin and was only slightly interested in Ethereum. That was until one fateful night in the fall of 2017. In a self-described, quote, caffeine-induced fever dream, which some of us are no doubt familiar with, Anatoly figured out how to improve cryptocurrency blockchains by timestamping transactions. The analogy Anatoly uses to explain this will help you understand how. Back before Guy was a little guy, if two radio towers sent out a signal on the same frequency at the same time, those signals would collide and the result would be white noise. To combat this, radio towers began operating on a time schedule. For example, the first radio tower would send out a signal on the first second, and the second radio tower would send out a signal on the second second. Then the first tower would send out a signal again, and so on. Cryptocurrency blockchains, such as Bitcoin, are currently operating like those old radio towers. Sometimes, two different miners will produce a new Bitcoin block at the same time. What now? Well, the blockchain temporarily splits, and the longest of the two blockchains wins. In short, whichever of the two new chains produces a block first becomes the actual Bitcoin blockchain. The other one gets ditched by Bitcoin miners and all the transactions on that chain get shafted. Not very efficient, if you ask me. Oh, and if you've ever heard of the term the longest chain, this is where the terminology comes from. This temporary situation where you have two blockchains. Now, as with the radio towers, this inefficiency could be fixed if everyone on the Bitcoin network was working in sync with a clock wherein each transaction could be timestamped. While companies such as Google and Intel have been able to timestamp data using a regular clock in their own centralized servers, building a decentralized clock is no easy task. Who would be the timekeeper on a decentralized blockchain? And what would happen if two or more parties had different timestamps for the same transaction? Anatoly's eureka moment on that fateful night in 2017 was that the very same SHA-256 mining algorithm used by Bitcoin could be tweaked to function as a decentralized clock. Combining this with an optimized proof-of-stake consensus would make it possible to process an insane amount of transactions per second while maintaining network security and decentralization. So, in November of 2017, Solana was born. Let's see what makes Solana's clock tick. Now, I'm going to be straight with you folks. Solana is hella complicated. So complicated that even crypto veteran hosts at the Epicenter podcast were having trouble wrapping their heads around this insane project when they were interviewing Anatoly. What's more is that Solana is still technically in mainnet beta. This means that what I say here may be subject to change. So, if you're watching this a few weeks or months after the posting date, make sure to check our YouTube channel for a new video about Solana, or dig into the description of this video for a link to Solana's updated documentation. All right, deep breaths, ladies and gentlemen. Let's unpack this baby. At a glance, Solana is a high-performance Layer 1 proof-of-stake blockchain. As mentioned earlier, this means it does not need to use additional Layer 2 chains or solutions to handle transactions. Solana can process 50 to 65,000 transactions per second, making it the fastest Layer 1 cryptocurrency blockchain out there right now. Like Ethereum, Solana is smart contract compatible, meaning that developers can create new cryptocurrency tokens and decentralized applications on it. Tether did just that last month, announcing that they would be offering Solana-based USDT. This is a no-brainer considering it costs 1,000th of a cent to send a transaction. This means it would cost you just $10 to send 1 million transactions on Solana's blockchain. To put this in perspective, 1 million transactions on Ethereum today would cost you over $300,000 worth of ETH, and that is with the cheapest and slowest possible gas option. How in the hell is this possible? It's all thanks to something called proof of history, and you may have heard this term before if you've previously come across Solana in the wild. Don't let the crypto jargon deceive you. Proof of history is not a consensus mechanism. Proof of history is a critical component of Solana's proof-of-stake consensus, and it is what makes Solana's clock tick. Simply put, proof of history involves adding something called a verifiable delay function to the SHA-256 mining algorithm, which makes it possible for all transactions on Solana to be timestamped. This makes it possible for validator nodes on the network to organize transaction records after the fact without having to first wait for other validator nodes to check their records. On the Solana blockchain, each new block that's produced is treated as a tick on this decentralized clock. Solana's clock ticks every 400 milliseconds. Now, I don't know about you, but it would be nice to have a fast-paced clock like that during slow times like these. I just can't wait for life to get back to normal. So, now we know how Solana organizes its data, but how can it crank out so many transactions per second? A large part of this is due to Solana's low barrier to entry to participate as a validator node on the network. To be a validator node on Solana, you will obviously need to stake their native SOL token. Here's the twist though. There is actually no minimum stake required to be a validator node on Solana. Compare this to the 70 grand you have to shell out to be a masternode on Dash, or the nearly 11 grand you need to become a validator node on Ethereum 2.0. Moreover, validator nodes on Solana fulfill all roles on the blockchain. They are all responsible for verifying transactions, storing transaction records, and generating new blocks. For example, each validator node takes turns being the leader, which produces Solana blocks. Each turn lasts for 4 blocks, which is just 1.6 seconds. And the likelihood of being chosen to be a leader is proportional to the amount of SOL tokens you have staked. The fact that leaders change every 1.6 seconds makes it hard for a single validator node or even a group of validators to attack or corrupt the network. They're also on the hook for misbehavior, as misbehaving nodes will see part of their stake slashed. Anatoly has even suggested the possibility of implementing a 100% stake slash for misbehaving nodes. How's that for swift justice? Another big reason why Solana is so efficient is because of Solana clusters. Solana clusters are groups of validator nodes which are dedicated to a specific category of transactions on the Solana blockchain. For example, you may have a Solana cluster which is responsible for hosting a DEX like Uniswap, and another cluster which is tasked with maintaining a decentralized virtual world like the Sandbox. These attributes are what makes Solana check all of the boxes. Decentralized? Check. Secure? Check. Scalable? Double check. Now, that's all well and good, but what about the SOL token? What does it do, and does it have enough solar power to make it to the moon? Well, let's take a look, shall we? SOL tokens are used to pay for transaction fees on the Solana blockchain and are burned when doing so. SOL tokens must also be staked to become a validator node on the Solana blockchain. As I mentioned in the previous section, there's no minimum stake required to become a validator node on Solana. Validator nodes take turns being the leader, which generates new Solana blocks, and SOL tokens are issued as block rewards. Misbehaving validator nodes see their stake slashed, and this slash stake is added to the block rewards pool. Here is where things get a little fuzzy. Solana is not currently issuing block rewards to validator nodes, nor is it slashing misbehaving nodes. This is because the project is still in beta. Despite this, Solana's mainnet beta, aptly titled Solana Beach, has over 180 stakers currently participating on the network. But you might be asking, Guy, why oh why would someone stake their tokens on a blockchain without rewards? Well, during Solana's ICO on CoinList in March of this year, they offered a staker price guarantee to all users who purchased SOL tokens during the ICO. This ICO raised $1.76 million, which is not all that much, but makes sense when you realize the 8 million SOL tokens sold accounted for only 1.6% of Solana's initial supply. In the first 3 months after Solana's March ICO, anyone who purchased SOL tokens had the option to submit KYC documentation to Solana in exchange for a guaranteed buyback. The price for this was just under 20 cents per SOL if they staked their tokens on Solana's mainnet beta. This was only slightly less than the 22-cent ICO price. Participating users would be able to redeem their tokens any time for up to 12 months after the ICO, and could redeem their SOL tokens at the price guarantee after just 2 days of staking if they wanted. Redemptions for SOL tokens would be paid by Solana in USDC, USDT, and BUSD stablecoins, with the user getting dibs on which crypto they wanted. Now, I don't know about you, but the fact that Solana is willing to buy back their own tokens shows just how confident the team is about the project. Unfortunately, the 3-month registration window to qualify for the staker price guarantee closed sometime in late June. So this basically means you'll not be eligible for redemption program if you were to go stake on Solana Beach right now. However, you do have one other option if you're interested in staking on Solana and actually want to receive some rewards for doing so. Tour de Sol is an incentivized Solana testnet. It consists of various events which reward users with over 30,000 SOL for doing things like successfully attacking the network, or even just being the most active validator node. With Solana's current price hovering at around $2.5 to $3, this corresponds to a top prize of nearly $100,000 in each of the 4 event categories. That is some hot payback. If you want to participate in Tour de Sol's testnet competitions, you will need to provide some KYC documentation and make sure your computer meets the specs required to be a validator node. You can find details on the registration process, computer specs, and event rewards in the video description below. So, what about the price of SOL? 30,000 SOL is nice, but not so nice if the price of each SOL drops back down to its earlier lows or worse. Well, Solana was listed on Binance just days after that ICO in March. As you can see, that did not appear to affect the price very much, and the downward drift in price continued for a few weeks after that. price was fairly flat until July, when it was revealed that the FTX cryptocurrency exchange had chosen Solana to host its Serum DEX. This was big news, especially since FTX's mad blockchain scientist Sam Bankman-Fried had been testing Serum on different blockchains for a year. This is because Serum is not like other DEXs. You see, most other DEXs use automated market makers to determine price due to high gas fees on Ethereum. Serum, however, has standard order books like those you would find on a centralized cryptocurrency exchange. Given its speed and efficiency, Solana was a no-brainer for the FTX team. The price of Solana seems to have stabilized around $2.5 to $3, a spiffy 11 to 12 times from its ICO price. There's just one small issue though: Solana's token emission schedule. You see, that March ICO was not the first time Solana tokens were sold. In fact, there were 4 private funding rounds prior to that. These sold off over 32% of Solana's initial supply to private investors for a total price of around $23 million. Around 13% of the initial supply has been allocated to the founders and team. Just over 10% has been allocated to the Solana Foundation, a Swiss non-profit, and the remaining 39% has been reserved for community initiatives such as Solana's Tour de Sol testnet events. Now, I know it's not Halloween yet, but I figured I would spook you all with this anyways. No, you're not hallucinating, at least I hope not. Only about 15% of all SOL tokens are currently in circulation. In 2021, the floodgates will open, and by January the 7th, another 80% of Solana's initial supply will be unleashed on the market. Now, I have a hard time believing that demand for SOL will ride out to meet that tsunami of supply. What's more is that it is not entirely clear whether SOL is inflationary or deflationary. Although SOL is burned in transaction fees, inflation will apparently be used to pay block rewards to validator nodes, but staking rewards have not yet been activated on Solana's mainnet beta or the Tour de Sol testnet. The fact that the Solana team intends to hand over the network to all SOL token holders further begs the question of how Solana and the price of SOL will look in even just 1 year's time. In short, the exact tokenomics of SOL still need to be hammered out, and those will surely have huge ramifications on the price potential of this cryptocurrency. Oh, and if you're wondering why the total supply of SOL is less than 500 million, it's because the difference was burned by the Solana team after their community discovered a mysterious Solana wallet which held over 13.5 million SOL tokens. This turned out to be an undisclosed loan which was made by the Solana Foundation to an unnamed market maker which was providing liquidity on Binance. Not the best look, if you ask me. Even with these pain points, Solana appears to be a promising project. Although it's technically still in development, it is amazing to see that the Solana blockchain is already able to host something as demanding as the Serum DEX. Tether's integration with Solana is also a huge vote of confidence for the project. This is all thanks to Solana's unique design. Its proof-of-history mechanism takes its proof-of-stake consensus mechanism to the next level by timestamping transactions. The low barrier to entry to become a staking validator node on the network is a huge selling point. Combine these two elements with the fact that the validator nodes frequently take turns producing blocks and fulfilling other roles on Solana's blockchain, and you have a recipe for scalability, decentralization, and security. I'm also glad to see that Solana does not appear to be heavily influenced by venture capital funding, something which has been a major issue for many other crypto projects. On the other hand, the aggressive token emission schedule for the SOL token, along with its fuzzy tokenomics, do not sit well with me. I will definitely be watching to see what happens to the price of Solana by the end of that first week of 2021. Could Solana dethrone Ethereum? Well, that depends. Although high transaction fees on the Ethereum network has left popular DeFi projects such as Sushiswap eyeballing Solana as an alternative chain to launch on, Solana is only slightly more complete than Ethereum 2.0 for now. There are also many other serious competitors in the dApp blockchain space, such as Polkadot and Cosmos. Not only are these other projects easier for regular folks like you and me to understand, but they're also fully operational. Still, the Solana team seems to have some pretty ambitious goals for the future, and given the progress they've made so far, these goals seem achievable. The wildest of these is to optimize Solana's blockchain so that DEXs that are hosted on it will allow users to trade in a 1 millisecond timeframe. Compare this to centralized exchanges like Binance, which offer 1 minute as the shortest trading timeframe. This would surely pique the interest of many crypto traders and could mark a paradigm shift for DEXs. This begs the question, what would happen if it became more efficient to host a centralized exchange like Binance on a blockchain like Solana? Do you think we would see centralized exchanges turn themselves into DEXs to take advantage of this efficiency? I'd love to see your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you're lucky, you may just receive a reply from me. That's it for today, Crypto Cats, my review of Solana. However, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to become acquainted with that like button by giving it a tap. And remember to hit up that subscribe button and yank on that notification bell to make sure you don't miss out on the next hot crypto project. Oh, and one more thing. What you see here is only a part of my master plan. I send out a weekly newsletter which contains the whole enchilada, useful resources, tips, and key highlights from the crypto space. You'll also see what projects I'm working on and even get a glance at my own cryptocurrency portfolio. So if this is something you fancy, head on over to the description of this video, click that newsletter link, fill in your email, click subscribe, and make sure to confirm your email. Easy peasy. I swear I will not spam you. What I do promise is that you will not want to miss the next newsletter I'm cooking up. Well, ladies and gents, it's been a pleasure as always, and see you next time.